Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to get together for these updates every week, and thankful for all of you who join us. Those of you that are able to, and some of you are traveling. I know that I've got one brother inbound here at our place, and I'm hearing from people all over that are traveling and doing all kinds of things right now. So maybe I'm just keeping you company as you drive down the road, and maybe that's my role tonight. That's kind of nice, actually. I started off in radio, so that actually is kind of a cool thought to be kind of trucking along with you down the road. That's kind of cool. Hopefully, hoping that's the case, at least for one person out there. Maybe I'm keeping you company as you drive down the road. That's kind of a nice thought. It really is. And for the rest of you, thank you for joining us. So shalom to all of you. So grateful that you stopped by. Seeing some friends on there, and always thankful when I see people that we know and folks that we're getting to know, and certainly grateful for all of you who continue to share the links. And boy, I tell you, I mentioned that on Shabbat, and all of a sudden everybody shared the links, and poof, a bunch of people watched the last episode. So good job, guys. That was great. I really appreciate that. It's really sweet of you. And I do think that kind of the way we do these updates is helpful to folks. I mean, after all, one of the challenges that everybody faces, and we hear this a lot, right? We hear this from a lot of folks that they don't want to hear any more about the news, and they're tired of it, they're sick of it, so they completely disconnect it. That's dangerous as well, right? Because there's things that you should know. On the other hand, this every hour, every 15-minute thing, and that just drives you bananas. And social media likes to do that to you. Various different apps and so forth. It's constant, and so that's a little bit overwhelming. So we like to be informed without being overwhelmed. And in that effort, we do have remnantwatch.com. I want to encourage those of you that haven't bookmarked that yet, please do so. And you'll always find this banner on the top, which will bring you to the latest of our weekly news updates. And that's kind of handy. Several people have already mentioned that. And we do have a search bar here. If you've missed a story or want to go back and take a look at something that we already mentioned in a previous broadcast, you can use that search bar, type in the title or the keywords of the story, and it'll bring it up for you. And you can go back and check that and what have you. A lot of people are going back on our previous reports, kind of tracking backwards, seeing just how many things we covered that turned out to be relevant. I think that's a really great thing to do, folks. I think that's an important way to track if what you're getting is information that gives you advance warning. What good is information that doesn't give you at least some insight and some ability to make good decisions, right? So part of what we're doing is hopefully providing some analysis that allows you to take a look at things from a biblical perspective and make wise choices. After all, that is what we're really after, is wisdom in this hour. And on that note, let's get into the news. And tonight's top story, Putin is warning that Russia is ready for a missile duel with the United States. And again, folks, we knew that things were going to heat up here. We have just now crossed over officially into winter. And so it is official now. We are now officially in the winter season, which comes in on the 22nd of this month as they count their calendars. And so we have crossed into that season, and Moscow is reporting Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday suggested a missile duel with the United States that would show how Russia's new Orshnik hypersonic ballistic missile could defeat any U.S. missile defense system. So he's letting them know beforehand, and awfully confident, and with good reason, they're hypersonic, and hypersonics are, well, they're difficult, if not impossible, to stop. And he says, we're ready for such an experiment, Putin said. Putin also said that Orshnik was a modern weapon, though it was based on previous Russia-designed developments. And so, again, they are beating their chests a little bit. I think part of this, again, is theatrical, but it is a very dangerous theatrical performance because these are significant weapons. If the United States up here goes to war with a near peer, i.e. Russia and China, the level of destruction that would be meted out worldwide would take many decades, if ever, to recover from. So this is when, these are some very, very dangerous times to be alive in. And the scripture tells us that days get so bad before the coming of the king that unless those days are shortened, there would no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, the days are shortened. But I got to tell you, folks, it might get pretty dicey before then, because look what the kind of things that we were talking about this stuff, guys, several times throughout the year. They were dropping these hints about drones, about AIs, and about robots. Well, it didn't take them long to put those things together on a battlefield. And the robot army, as Ukraine deploys an all-robot battle force. Are you seeing this? And of course, it being released in a sense when it's like going after the evil empire, so therefore it's okay, right? So now it's okay for you to have to fight robots. Did we reach Terminator yet? Here we are, folks. This is version 1 of the robots battle force for the first time as deadly tech is launched at Putin's troops in Kharkiv assault. So I'm pretty sure they didn't develop these robots there in Kiev, Ukraine. So here they've got their robot army coming out. And again, you might think, oh, that's no big deal. All those are laughable. Listen, when you're dealing with motorized, you've got a distinct advantage, obviously, if you're using equipment that doesn't require humans to be inside in order to inflict damage. You certainly are welcome to go back and take a look at the story. But the point is that now we're reaching a point where we're normalizing this conversation. And we're normalizing these words in our conversation of war. We're normalizing this. So it doesn't matter what they're doing here. What is happening is you're now being introduced to the concept of a drone war. You're being introduced to the concept of robotic warfare, of things that are threats to your safety that are non-human, that have no jurisdiction over you, that are being controlled by another human, another person who also actually has no jurisdiction over you. But because of brute force alone and technology, they're usurping that authority over you. This is a very dangerous time, and it's going to empower people that frankly have no business with that kind of power. But here we go. And so the world stage is starting to shift, and it is shifting quickly, folks. How many are paying attention to Turkey and the activity that it's doing down in the theater of operations in the Middle East? This is very dangerous activity indeed, as the Turkish president calls for global unity. And he's calling for justice at a D8 summit, urging rebuilding efforts in war-torn Syria. And we already know how he feels toward the Israeli regime. Recep Erdogan criticized the global security failures, advocates for stronger cooperation during a speech at the D8 summit in Cairo, Egypt. And many are starting to wonder just what the intentions of Turkey are, because it looks like Turkey is encircling Israel and is making coalitions. They were just now in Cairo, Egypt, and of course, they were involved in Syria. They do have quite a few connections with Jordan. So you're seeing Israel is slowly being encircled in a way that we hadn't seen before. And of course, and basically, there are many who are starting to wonder, is this really a portent of a coming war or conflict with Turkey? And Turkey, of course, is a NATO partner. So this is starting to get very, very complicated in this theater of operations. And so this is not going to be as easy as it may appear, because, again, with Turkey comes all the NATO countries. That's a problem with Israel because, of course, of Israel's relationship with the United States. So we may see a disconnection of the United States from NATO in part because of this. And there's a lot of reports coming out. This is Fox News reporting that tensions between Israel and Turkey are escalating over Syria. And they're saying it's time to pay attention. Now, whether or not it actually is time to pay attention or not, they're telling you to. When they tell you to, we do have to look around at what they're not talking to us about, so we can see what's actually happening, that they want you to look at this instead. One of those things was a bill that was passed for over $1 trillion. They sure didn't want you to look too close at that. Israel rejected Turkish accusations on Tuesday following Ankara's condemnation of Israeli military action in Syria as Turkey escalates its own operations in the war-torn country. The rising tensions have deepened the rift between the two nations and sparked concern over regional stability and the fate of U.S.-backed Kurdish forces fighting ISIS. And we all know what ISIS actually stands for, so I told you it was getting complicated, guys. It isn't good guy, bad guy anymore. Now we got a couple of double crosses going on. We're watching a movie that we're not really getting the insights. Normally when we watch a movie, guys, we get these cut scenes that tell us like the inside scoop. You get the behind the scenes conversations and phone calls. We're seeing the public part without the movie script. We don't know what's going on behind these closed doors, but I promise you there's some double crosses going on back here. There's a lot more going on in the Middle East than we are aware of right now, because they are not talking about all of the different factors that are coming to play. And take a look at the Houthis. Do they look like they're afraid? Do they look like they're scared of anybody? I mean, these guys don't back down at all. Houthis say attacked U.S. aircraft carrier in Red Sea and shot down a U.S. fighter jet. I mean, it almost reminds me of those little like tiny guys in Star Wars as they were fighting, like oi, 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 in the woods and whatever. But they don't quit. So what are you going to do? The Houthis from Yemen rebels Ansar Allah movement attacked the U.S. Harry Truman aircraft carrier in the Red Sea and shot down an F-18. The movement's military spokesman said, our armed forces managed to prevent U.S. and U.K. attack on our country by means of attacking the U.S. Harry Truman. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. We don't know, but they think it's true. What does that mean? That means they're going to be bolder. They're going to be excited. Doesn't matter if it's true. What matters is it's boldening them for a fight. Somebody wants a fight. Somebody is really trying hard to bring parties to a fighting level. And that's been going on for quite a while. And if you know about the Albert Pike prophecy, that'll make a lot more sense. As a matter of fact, the Houthis, did you guys hear about this? Houthis fired a missile from Yemen and it strikes Tel Aviv, causing minor injuries. Okay, so it didn't quite, knock anything down completely, but the fact that they were able to shoot it and they couldn't be stopped and it hit, okay, and they shot it and it landed. At least 16 people were hurt, according to Israeli emergency services. The injuries were minor, cuts from glass shards and so forth, but attempts to intercept the projectile were unsuccessful. Now, I wonder where they got these things from Russia, that Israel can't stop them, who has all the best anti-missile defense systems money can buy. There just aren't any better. So, in-field test, the hypersonic missile, unstoppable. If it's carrying a different kind of warhead, that hit right there is a whole different scene. Okay? The fact that it's carrying a conventional warhead means minor injuries. If it were carrying a different warhead, we'd be having a different broadcast right now. And so, folks, this is beyond dangerous now. The fact that they can't stop those, they're, to me, like warning shots. It's almost like they're letting them know, you can't stop these, and we're going to keep dropping them on you. So this is not good. There's a lot of tension that is now going on that wasn't there before. And we're seeing a lot of the international community is starting to react to that. And again, I told you guys, this is being played out a lot differently than we've seen in the past. The pressure on the individual leaders, the international criminal court stuff, right? The indictments, things like that on the actual people, like in this case, Netanyahu, right? That's changing the whole deal. Look at this. Look at this report, guys. Netanyahu will not be able to attend the Auschwitz Liberation Anniversary event because he's afraid of being snagged up by Poland. Yeah, Poland has said it would, in fact, honor the International Criminal Court indictment and subpoena. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will reportedly avoid traveling to Poland for next month's events, marking the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, a Nazi concentration camp, fearing he may be arrested. The major event is planned for International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 27th. So it looks like no matter what, things are not going so well for Mr. Netanyahu, even if they were to come to peace agreements and all kinds of stuff. The world is changing. The world is changing, and the atmosphere is changing. Look at this, counter-terror chief in the UK. This is really starting to become a powder keg. And those of you that are in the UK or have family there, keep them in prayer. And we send love to all of you, and we pray cover over all of you that you would be safe, all the remnant there, because it's starting to get dicey in the UK. And counter-terror chief warns of smoldering UK threat, where 3 late-stage attacks were foiled in the UK. And you know that there are the sore losers, guys. Remember, we told you that now they know they don't have much time. They're throwing a little bit of a hissy fit, if you know what I mean. And this is the kind of stuff that sore losers do. So don't be shocked by these things, is my point. Counterterrorism policing coordinator Vicki Evans said today that terror groups can capitalize on chaos and galvanize support, which can lead to a change in threat level. And I do believe those things do escalate quickly. Sometimes it's one social event, maybe an arrest, maybe some other type of action taken that then all of a sudden explodes because it touches an already existing sentiment that is starting to curse through the people. After all, a lot of them are waking up to the wholesale fraud that was enacted 50 years ago. Many people are catching up to that. They're asking new questions. They are, pushing back very differently than ever before. And I think this is what presents a whole new world. It's not because they're going to give it to you because of their benevolent ideas of how they could run your world better. I believe it is because, as he said, the wicked are destroyed by the brightness of the king's coming. And that brightness awakens our intellect. It awakens our minds. It awakens our ability to reason. And they rely on stupid. Let me tell you. So some of you are really starting to figure them out. And they don't like that when you figure. Just think about an abuser. When you start picking apart their lies and they know, like they got everybody else under the spell, but you're going, what time did you say that was? Well, how's it possible that you were there at that time when, see, you're not under the spell? When you're that person, you're the one in danger because you're the one called. They got everybody else fooled except you. You're in danger. Okay. Abusers hate it when somebody's onto them. That's the person they want to get rid of because they figure they got everybody else. You get me? So pay attention and be careful out there. There's some of you show that you're awake a little too much. Sometimes you got to play a little dumb sometimes and be wise as serpents, harmless as doves, and get away from some of these people because you're surrounded. Some of you are in such hostile territory, you don't even discern it. And it's very, very dangerous. So be careful, be wise out there. And Trump is now making threats of his own. He's not even in office yet. And he's already talking about taking back the Panama Canal. Now, I don't know if you know this, but this is a massive, massive component of contention and a great disturbance to the economy. President-elect Donald Trump seems poised to revive the Monroe Doctrine, signaling a renewed focus that the U.S. will continue Western Hemisphere domination for decades and will no longer tolerate any other competition in controlling strategic maritime choke points or natural resources in the region. And on Saturday evening, Trump vented on Truth Social how President Jimmy Carter foolishly gave away the Panama Canal for $1. And he explained it was solely for Panama to manage, not China or anyone else. So now there's going to be a bit of a contest. And if you guys remember, we reported that China had essentially said that rare earth minerals could no longer be shipped to the United States. So we got ourselves a bit of a tit for tat going on right here between China and the United States, and he's not even in office yet. Folks, this portends what is to come. And of course, we can't get away from this drone distraction. How many of you have been watching this nonsense unfolding and wondering, what are you folks wanting us to look at this for? What are you not wanting us to take a look at? I don't know. We're going to cover that too. But spy drones from China, according to this report, are likely the cause of unexplained aircraft wreaking havoc over U.S. House Foreign Affairs chair says in a bombshell claim, right? Well, it is coming from the New York Post, so add a bunch of salt with that. House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCall said Tuesday he believes that some of the unidentified drones spotted over New Jersey and New York are spy drones from China, after Biden administration officials insisted many of the sightings are innocent commercial aircraft, which is a load of hooey. I think we're all pretty secure in knowing that that's not likely just to be, some innocent aircraft. There's too many images of very, very menacing looking things flying around. And of course, China just took advantage of that and said, let me just make fun of you guys for this. And this, by the way, is a tactic used to throw off suspicion, often by, again, abusers. They make a joke of your accusation, even because you're too close to the truth, right? You might be too close. So China is mocking America as breeding ground for delusion. Delusion, you're deluded. China state-run Global Times on Thursday mocked the United States as a breeding ground for delusion because of the furor over drone sightings in New Jersey. The Chinese Communist propaganda organ was particularly irked by House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCall, claiming the mysterious aircraft were Chinese spy drones. So they reacted right away to that, just making fun of them. Let me just make fun of you. They really should read Mark chapter 4. That's one of the 3 tests of any true word, is that it will be mocked and scoffed. The sower sows the word, and after the snatch fails, the next tack is mock, scoff, and embarrass or deride, right? Those are the things that you typically see as the enemy tries to get you to let go of something you should hold. And so I think America is starting to get a little fed up. These guys are shooting things down, man. Long Island cops can shoot down drones as new high-tech command center unveiled. We don't want to wait. These guys are like, we're ready to go. Let's shoot it down. Nassau cops have been given the green light to shoot troublesome drones out of the sky, with officials say they don't want to wait for something disastrous to happen. Okay, we got pre-crime going on. While you're shooting things out of the sky that might cause disaster, there's stuff that, all of a sudden we see little lines and stuff. Why don't you shoot those down too while you're at it? Just say it. I think some of this is really... Woo! Anti-aircraft fire is not as easy as people think it is, by the way, just so you know. Take it from a gunner's mate, okay? Anti-aircraft fire requires quite sophisticated capabilities that most people don't have. So standing on the ground with your pistol thinking you're going to shoot drones down, I mean, they'd have to be pretty low and poorly driven. Just say it. just say it. They're not going to be catching these drones that are flying like so fast they're a blur. That's not happening. And so China's making fun of them. Yeah, China's like, oh, you guys are so goofy, you bunch of deluded people. You're all so deluded. Look at you. 7 Chinese nationals tried to illegally enter Guam as U.S. tested missiles, authorities say. Oops. Maybe not so funny. Maybe not so funny, huh? 7 Chinese citizens were arrested on charges of illegally entering Guam around the time of the U.S. Missile Defense Agency conducted a key missile intercept test using a new radar, the island's Customs and Quarantine Agency has said. The agency said at least 4 of the people arrested on December 10th and 11th were found in the vicinity of a military installation. And, of course, Guam has many of those. It's literally, that's what it's for. But you guys are just deluded. You're just deluded. Right? What do you no, there's nothing going on here. There's nothing to see here. You're all deluded. It's all delusion. said the Chinese guy who sent 7 spies to Guam. So we're going to keep an eye on all of it, but it's very interesting. And I don't think it's innocent. I think it's very, very foreboding, especially when you see reports like this. And again, it doesn't matter, guys, if it's real or not. The fact is, it's in the news. The fact that it's in the news tells you they want it in the psyche of the people, and they want it in the psyche of the people for a reason. So we watch this stuff not because we necessarily believe it. Okay, guys, you with me? We don't necessarily believe them, but we know that they want people to believe this. So since we know that they want them to believe it for a reason, we have now our eyes open to why are they doing that? And that changes the way we look at headlines. So here we see that they're reporting that nuclear power plants, which portends maybe perhaps some blackouts coming, right? Report massive uptick in drone sightings. So now they got a perfect cover story. They can blame the nefarious drones if they want to turn power off. The number of drone flyovers of nuclear plants in 2024 nearly doubled in just 1 week, from December 10th to the 17th, according to data provided by the War Zone, by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And so, of course, they're letting us know, because that's really important that you know that. That's not something that they would maybe keep, the Secret Service or, the Marshal Service or some other FBI. No, they got to tell you so you're aware. Not that you can do anything about this. You see how that works? Just give you some anxiety over stuff you have zero control over or power over. And this is a report that should be this should be an inner office memo on whoever's got the longbow gun and shoots these things down. That's the only people that should be getting that. You shouldn't be getting that. You shouldn't even know that. The only thing you should hear about is how they shot 3 of them down and everything is fine. That's what you should be hearing. So why are they telling you this? Why are they putting that in front of you on purpose? There's always a reason, guys. Always a reason. Okay? Just like we saw these conflicts that are now erupting coming 10,000 miles away because of the fact that they telegraph it. They do it all the time. And now they're continuing this particular theme. And again, we pay attention to patterns. We're not conspiracy theorists. We're pattern recognition experts. Okay? That's what we are. A startling image of mystery drone over what? Once again, U.S. Air Base. I'm only showing these to you because they're saying it much more quickly now. And those of you that are picking that up, you're starting to go, wow, you're right. There is an increase in the pattern. You're absolutely right. So there's something going on here. And the UK revealed as bombshell report claims FBI has known about swarms over military sites for a year. So now they're trying to backtrack and say, oh, this has been going on, and now it's finally getting out. It's getting out to where we need to know about it. We got to tell you about it. Why? I don't know. I don't know why we got to tell you, but we got to tell you. Okay? This is just for your anxiety levels, guys, because anxiety-filled people make really... Do you think they make great choices? Do you make a lot of great choices when you're filled with anxiety? Do you make your best decisions? Is that when you're the most creative, the most resourceful? No? I wonder if they know that. Unauthorized drones have zipped across U.S. military bases at speeds of 170 miles an hour, easily dodging radar and signal jamming systems. But contrary to the non-answers intelligence officials have been dishing out as New Jersey residents panic about car-sized drones flying over their homes for the past month, the government has been aware of the threat for over a year, Daily Mail can exclusively reveal. Okay, can't tell us how they can reveal it, but they're telling us that they've known about this for some time now. Nothing new about this. This has actually been a growing problem. Okay? And drones are spotted near at least 17 military bases located next to, coincidentally, you people are all deluded. Okay? Coincidentally, 17 military bases located next to Chinese-owned land in the U.S. And it just so happens, coincidentally. So this is a pattern. Don't recognize this pattern now, because, my goodness, if you pick this up, you might put 2 and 2 together and get 4. Okay? Right next to 17 bases. And why are they putting these military bases right next to that Chinese land? I mean, what's wrong with these people? At least 17 military bases adjacent to Chinese-owned farmland. Are you kidding me? Did they really write that way? The 17 military bases are adjacent to Chinese-owned farmland. I'm pretty sure the Chinese-owned farmland is adjacent to the military bases. What do you guys think? Do you see it like the other way around? I don't know. Just me. Across the U.S., there's a rash of drone sightings in recent weeks, the Post has learned. Mysterious drones have been reported near military bases in Hawaii, okay, and installations in Utah, California, Maine, and Florida, among other facilities scattered throughout the country. The Post previously identified 19 military bases that lie close to farmland bought up by Chinese-owned companies. See how they wrote that? Did I just read that right? I'm not even kidding. That is laughable. They're literally acting as if the military bases got put next to the Chinese-owned land. I'm sorry, but that's backwards. That is wild. It's wild. How dare they put these military bases next to that Chinese farm? I mean, no wonder they're running a drone up. I mean, they're just verklempt. Their new neighbor. I mean, this is laughably ridiculous, folks, but here we are. Okay. And I got to tell you, folks, I do think this next report really is valid, because I don't think people realize just how threatening this really actually is, especially if these are hostile. Because again, folks, this is technology that we're finding out in the warfare that's going on in Ukraine and other places is quite deadly and quite difficult to deal with, even for war machines, even for sophisticated warships, right? So how will cities do if they're now under assault from drones? And according to this report, Wired is reporting in previous unreported August memo, the Department of Homeland Security urged state and local police to conduct exercises to test their ability to respond to weaponized drones. Because, you know, things just got more interesting. So now, who turned on Skynet, guys? Who turned on Skynet? Skynet is activated. The Department of Homeland Security issued warnings to state and local law enforcement agencies this summer regarding the growing illicit use, and they're making it sound like it's it's just the citizens of commercial drones. Internal documents show among the recommended steps was conduct exercises to test and prepare response capabilities. And so they wrote a memo. I want you to know, guys, I want you to understand, it was a really strongly worded memo too. I mean, it was really strongly worded. So, you know, from Homeland Security, even had their logo on the top, told you prepare, you know, get ready. I'm going to write this on a memo. We're going to put a few exclamation points on there so you can get ready for warfare with drones. Everybody get ready. Everybody, ready up. There's a memo. I hope that must be an amazing memo, because the memo is telling them everything they need to know to do, right? What a memo. Wow. That's all we needed was a memo. I mean, maybe I should just send out some memos to everybody. Here's a memo. Matthew 24, read it. It's just crazy. And here we got the Pentagon's coming out to answer all your questions. Don't worry. They're going to leave you with more questions than they answer. Yes, they are. The assessment of the recent drone sightings leaves more questions than answers, because basically they said, that ain't us. We didn't do it. We don't know what's going on. We don't have any idea. They came out looking pretty inept. I'm not even going to read this. It was so embarrassing. I'm almost embarrassed to be a veteran. It was that bad. Okay. And again, guys, we're seeing these kinds of stories all the time now. We're seeing Camp Pendleton. What? This is like hoorah central. This is meant to make Marines go, you got to be kidding me. You know, there's some Marines right now going, oh, no, you didn't. Oh, no, you didn't. Okay. So that there's intention to this, guys. There's intention to these stories being dropped. There's somebody's trying to start some stuff. You see, if you don't start no stuff, there won't be no stuff. So they know they got to start it if they want it. And you think that's the only thing happening right now? Ooh, buddy, look at this. While we're looking up at the sky, missing radioactive material in New Jersey sparks the drone theories. They're looking for something, mayor says. A New Jersey mayor warned Tuesday that the troubling drone sightings over the state may be linked to missing radioactive material, although federal officials say the amount poses no serious threat. Of course not. Of course not. No, it's no problem. We're going to send out 5 million drones to look for it. Now, this is a plausible reason for it, and a reason why they might not want to tell you why these drones are up there. So that does have some potential for credibility, right? I mean, I don't know what you guys think. What do you guys think? You think that might be the reason why these drones are being seen over military bases, though, that's the part that gets me kind of going, what would they be looking for in a military base? This unmanned drone spotted in the vicinity of Hill Air Force Base. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. That doesn't jive with their theory. So I don't know, I'd love to hear your thoughts though, but I don't buy that. Hill Air Force Base, Utah, with the hysteria over mysterious drone sightings across the country at its peak, officials confirmed Monday that unmanned drones have been spotted recently near Hill Air Force Base in Utah. And so this is not just an East Coast phenomenon, guys, going on all the way in Utah. Look at that. And we did get reports there were some off the California coast. So it is a nationwide thing. But don't worry, because everything's under control. Because the people in Minnesota, well, they got a plan. And here's their plan. You ready? Their plan is to get a Capitol building in Minnesota. And I think putting up a display will really help. Boy, that'll really help things really get better in the country. I mean, put it right in the middle of the country. Minnesota's like right in the northern center, just right there in the middle, like a top of a tree or something. Just put that right there. Absolutely. Isn't that a great idea, guys? What a wonderful, wonderful idea. Put a display in Minnesota, the Capitol, so you can praise this, the syncretism. And of course, that is the mystery religion. Syncretism is the mystery religion. So this actually is Satanism, is everything mixed together. Everything's good. Everything is awesome, right? And so, isn't that a great idea? Way to go, Minnesota. What could go wrong? I mean, I think that's a great idea. I don't think there's any problem with that at all, guys. I think everything will be great. Don't you? Don't you think that the country will just do wonderful if we do stuff like that? Don't you think so? Don't you think the Dow tumbling more than 260 points for 9 days losing streak, as longest since 1978, is just a coincidence? I mean, don't you think so? I think so. It's just a coincidence, guys. Come on. You're a little getting ridiculous now. The Dow Jones Industrial Average entered the history books Tuesday with the first 9-day losing streak since 1978. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. I'm sure it has nothing to do with anything. It's just one of those things, that just happens, These things happen, guys. They just happen. And now the Dow tanks by 1,100 points, posts first 10-day losing streak since 1974. Wow, 50 years ago. I haven't seen any references to 50 years ago, have we, guys? We've been seeing any references to 50 years ago? 50 years. What about 50 is so important? Oh, yes. The Jubilee at 50 years. Interesting. This is when they close the redemption window, isn't it? Yes, it is. This is when your massive fraud really began, right here. And we're all starting to wake up to that, aren't we? We're all starting to ask new questions, and we're entitled to ask those questions. You're entitled to ask questions. Nobody should ever tell you that you don't have the right to ask, hey, what happened here? Hey, what'd you guys do here? Hey, wait a minute. We're just now figuring this out, okay? We didn't realize this before, but now we're asking new questions. Yeah. Welcome to this new time, because we're really seeing it. And again, one of the things that we're really starting to wake up to is how much authority and power we gave away that we didn't really realize we gave away. Like, who gave these people all this power, right? But, now we're dealing with it. FAA announces temporary restrictions on drone flights in New Jersey following influx of sightings, which is great. Hey, stop them from messing with things. But at the same time, you got to kind of wonder, do you start seeing sort of agency creep where they start taking more and more authority and say things very dictatorially? The Federal Aviation Administration on Wednesday issued a temporary flight restrictions prohibiting drone flights over parts of New Jersey following an influx of sightings in recent weeks. The notice, which expires January 17th, said drone operations in support of national defense, homeland security, and law enforcement, firefighting, search and rescue, disaster response missions are not included in the restriction. In other words, if it's official business, you can fly. All you non-important people, get out of the air. We own the air. You don't get to fly anything in the air. Okay? So, I can understand that in a threat situation, a war situation, but I would expect that order is going to expire at a certain point, right? And people are able to fly their drones again because they live there too. So that's kind of interesting. Again, using one type of problem to justify curtailing other things. So this is very interesting. We're going to continue to watch this unfold. And as more and more of the questions start to come up. Speaking of questions, how many of you went, where's Brain Implant Man? Where is Brain Implant Man? Right? Where's he at? Elon Musk has said nothing about the mysterious drones. Don't y'all find that interesting? Where's SpaceX? Where's Captain SpaceX? I think that's interesting. Don't you guys find that? The Blaze thought it was interesting. And they, of course, wrote in a whole article why they think that's weird. And you're welcome to. But I just thought that was a great question, don't you? Like, oh, that's an interesting coinkydink. He hasn't said a word. Mr. SpaceX hasn't said a word about the drones. Now, who else finds that just tiny bit odd? A tiny bit. So now we're going to wonder what's going on. And, of course, the White House did come out and they said, oh, you guys are making a big deal out of this, and it's really no big deal, nothing to worry about here. And, I don't know what these people are talking about, shooting drones down, all this nonsense. I mean, hey, guys, calm down, go get an ice cream cone. You're worrying about nothing. Right? And then the Coast Guardman says the White House is making stuff up after his vessel was tailed by a fleet of drones. Okay. And so they're very irate Coast Guardsmen down in Bernagot Light, New Jersey. Federal officials have shrugged off accounts from U.S. Coast Guard members that 47-foot-long rescue vessel was trailed by a fleet of 12 to 30 drones while patrolling the Atlantic Ocean earlier this month. Regular drones can't go that long and that far, guys. That's a lot of flying. And some of these are flying like long distances. And I've flown drones. I know a little bit about them. They don't stay airborne that long. You can't keep them for hours and hours on end flying out there. So what's going on here? This is getting more and more interesting by the minute. And back into the delusions. Now, you know that China is making fun of the Americans for all their delusions. Okay, the Americans, you guys are all deluded. And so, this man in New York City running a Chinese news or Chinese police station, it must be just part of the delusion. Maybe we're just imagining this. We're just having a collective delusion. The Chinese, let's see, explain this one, right? An American citizen has pleaded guilty to helping run what has been described as the first known secret police station in the U.S. on behalf of the Chinese government. Are we deluded here too? Is this a delusion? Prosecutors say Chen Jinping and his co-defendant Liu Yingwang opened and operated the state's Manhattan Chinatown neighborhood in early 2022 on behalf of China's Ministry of Public Security. And at least 100 of such stations have been reported worldwide across 53 countries, with Rights Group accusing China of using the outposts to threaten and monitor Chinese nationals abroad, which means that they have then control over their activity inside whatever country they've put these in. So it's pretty obvious why that would be problematic, especially if you are having tension with that country. And China has no problem with subterfuge and spying. So now we're putting our military bases too close to their plants. Apparently, we're putting Guam too close to their beaches for vacationing, and we're also, clearly just not policing New York properly. They have to send in their own folks. So this is what you're dealing with. And again, there's a reason for these warnings and things that are coming out. Now you're seeing assaults on, we've been hearing a lot about the technological assaults, the hacking, right? The various things that are being hacked. And we've heard, oh goodness, I don't even know how many stories this year. Well, now the U.S. government is telling officials and politicians to ditch regular calls and texts So this is a new development. They're just basically going to try to get it all encrypted. U.S. government is urging senior government officials and politicians to ditch phones, calls, and text messages following intrusion at major American telecommunications. Blamed on who? Chinese hackers. Right now, in written guidance released on Wednesday, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency said individuals who are in senior government or senior political positions should immediately review and apply a series of best practices around the use of mobile devices. Why only senior officials? Frankly, everybody should be practicing some very, very new standard protocols, especially regarding your phones. Your phones are the least secure device you are using. They talked you into these very low security devices for a reason, folks. 2010, we reached the 50% mark. And once that happened and they got smartphones in people's pockets, then they removed the batteries. Remember, you used to be able to take the batteries out. Remember that? Take a look at your phone. Can you take the battery out of that one? Probably not, especially if you bought in the last year or two. So very slick what they've slowly evolved into doing. And so very important that we understand it. And they don't want you to understand the power of these devices. They actually deliberately basically hide a lot of this information. So guys, you got to be smart enough to do your own homework. And there's all kinds of reporting that people want to do, but they don't want it out there. Here, mystery as a radioactive shipment goes missing in New Jersey amid drone invasion. So they don't want you to know about some of these things that are happening. And radioactive materials went missing in New Jersey earlier this month, fueling conspiracy theories that could be linked to the mysterious drone sightings. And again, that's possible, but I do believe that your real major threat is coming from those who have usurped authority and think that they have the right to dictate to you. So those are the more dangerous people on Earth right now, and something that you all have to be aware of. The Earth is responding. Speaking of the Earth, many of you may have heard about this, and Vanuatu, capital without power after deadly magnitude 7.3 earthquake hit, and rescue efforts continue after powerful earthquake, possibly the strongest in years, devastated the island nation of Vanuatu, killing at least 9 people. So earthquakes seem to be getting up there. That was a what was that? 7.2, 7.3. So they're getting up there and getting more devastating. And we've been watching that part this year as well. There seems to be more of that. Speaking of earthquakes, how many heard about this earthquake? Gavin Newsom declaring the state of emergency in California due to bird flu. I told you guys all year long we've been watching this, right? We've been watching them convince us that cows get bird flu, therefore the bird flu goes into the milk, therefore the milk. I mean, they've been trying to sell us this line of thinking. And of course, who's shocked that California would buy into this? The declaration follows an outbreak among dairy cows in Southern California. You guys can read this if you can stomach it. Frankly, it is really difficult for me to stomach how much gaslighting they do to the American people, especially when it comes to medical issues, medical health issues, things along this line. They know most of the people are completely ignorant. They use key buzzwords with no other intention but control. None of this has got to do with medical care or improving your health. I'm sorry, but we've got to be smarter than that. And you all have to take responsibility for your own health choices. Everyone has to do that. And you have to be really careful. I don't know when you hired a nanny to do that for you. Did any of you hire a nanny for that purpose? Some people hired themselves to be your nanny. So be careful. Okay. And now you're seeing again this stoking up. Now we're getting into some of the social stuff before we close up here. And this was horrible. This happened in Germany. And again, reflecting the demonic level that we're dealing with in the winter now, guys. So we've crossed into the winter. And what kind of fight do they want? Well, they want to fight between the Zionists and Islam, and also want to destroy churchianity in the same process, because they want to bring in something as a result of the annihilation of all these different components. And so don't be surprised by these types of false flags and horrible events. That's just part of what we're going to be going through as predicted in the scripture. So men's evil men and seducers will wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. At least 60 to 80 are injured as a car plows into a crowd of people at a Christmas market in Germany. And of course, it was a Muslim man. So this was a targeted attack, very demonic, very wicked, with intention, meant to be provocation, meant to start conflict, start a fight. And that's pretty obvious, that we're dealing with that kind of thing right now. And as a matter of fact, if you are paying attention, you're going to find out that things are not going well for El Popo and his merry band of folks. They're not doing so great these days. Ever since the horn blew in 2015 on the Mount of Olives, when he came to Congress on that very same moment, Yahuwah Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim, commanded a different horn to blow. And things haven't been doing so well for them since then, since they didn't want to give you your Jubilee. And the Vatican is on the brink of bankruptcy due to dramatic decline in global donations under Pope Francis's leadership. The Vatican has found itself in the middle of a critical financial crisis, which threatens to jeopardize the livelihood of retired clergy and staff worldwide. Boo-hoo. Boo, boo, hoo. And so they're going glub, glub. And this is actually all part of that plan to cause these things to fall down and therefore leave the people without, as they put it, compass and direction. That's how they saw it. You need these guys for your, quote, compass and direction. And so that's why they wanted to attack these things and remove them from you, so that you would, of course, be without direction, and you would then fall for what they present to you. And if it were possible, they would fool even the very elect. And this is why it is so very important that we unite in one accord in this hour, have our eyes open, be sober and vigilant as we watch the things unfolding before us. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, before I give you this last story today, the demonic and wicked things that are happening in the earth today are part of the fulfillment of the scripture. So while it's hard to look at, and some of these stories are difficult to hear, these are also indicating to us how quickly we are reaching the end and that our King is coming. Because this was actually specifically prophesied that there would be the last of these. There would be one last one, and then that last one would trigger his judgment. And unfortunately, I got to share this story with you because these are the kinds of demonic things that are happening now, and why you need to continue to move towards more and more set apart. As a father is arrested for beheading his 1-year-old son. And there's no other way to say that, but that is just demonic. And it's very sad. I hardly want to talk about it because it's so sad. But this is the kind of stuff that is manifesting now. This is the end of the road for people who have denied and refused to accept the free gift of eternal life and the accept of the cleanse that only he can provide. And so they've given themselves over, been given over to a reprobate mind, and to do those things, as the scripture says, are not convenient. And there's a tremendous amount of this going on. So it's not just, you see this in the street and you think, oh man, that poor guy. But what you don't see is there's another guy just as crazy in a suit, looks very nice, looks like he's all put together, and he's going into a very important job, and he's just as nuts as this guy. He's just as nuts as that guy right there. He's just as disturbed, just as angry, except he doesn't take it out in that way. He takes it out in other ways. And so this is why we have to be a sober people in this hour to understand the battles that we're in, to understand the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And remember that the scripture tells us to be sober and vigilant in this hour, because our adversary, the devil, walk about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And he uses words to do that. And so you must understand how to stand your ground, to be a person who understands who you are, why you're here, and what position you hold. They're living in a fiction world. You are not. It's time for you to wake up to that. It's time for you to start to understand that the fraud that's been pulled over their eyes doesn't necessarily have to be over yours. And so our encouragement to all of you is to find your fold. Find the place that the Most High has set apart for you to be found faithful, to finish well. After all, he can't say, well done, unless you get something done. He can't even say, poorly done, unless you get something done. Well, that's it for tonight. I pray this broadcast has been a barakah to you, and I pray your house has much blessing in these days ahead. And so thank you for joining us. Good night.